Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning, and we're spending an hour with Martin Miller, who is the CEO and president of New England Public Media, who recently announced that he's stepping down after over 25 years of building what was 88.5 FM WFCR, a small public radio station in Amherst, into a major network and a partnership with both public radio and public TV. And he's been the leader through this amazing 25-year transition. And I've got to say, he and I worked together. I actually was at WFCR when he arrived at the station. And over the years, I was there until 2009. We worked together, but we also became close friends. We share a love of theater and would run off to New York all the times. And you know you have a strong friendship with somebody when you can sit through a performance of Stockard Channing and Pal Joey and still like that person after the show is over. So, Martin, it's great to have you on board today, kind of like the exit interview.
Yes, Mark. Good morning. Thank you for having me on. It's been a long time and a long friendship, and I really appreciate that. And thanks for asking me to be here for a whole hour. I hope we can fill it.
An entire hour.
I love the background there, by the way, Mark.
I picked a Starbucks motif. It's where I would normally be seen off air or on the air.
Yes, and we've been to many Starbucks also.
Yeah, we have.
Together.
We have.
Yes.
And all that good stuff. So within the last month, you made this announcement that you're going to be retiring soon as a successor is found. And then you'll do some fundraising consulting for New England Public Media to kind of a upcoming campaign. When you look back at the 26 years you've been there, what do you feel are the accomplishments that you're the most proud of?
Well, I'm proud of a lot of accomplishments, and I would just start off by saying it doesn't happen without a great team of people I've had to work with over these many years, including you, Mark. I remember our very first meeting in Hampshire House when I came to be general manager of WFCR. I'm not actually retiring. I like to think of more of a transition. There will be a new president appointed probably this fall. I'll be in this position until then. And then I'm going to transition to working exclusively on this campaign, which we're calling our New Voices campaign, which is in our quiet phase at the moment. But when I was hired, I guess I was given several major areas that needed attention. One was fundraising, specifically major giving. Another was board interaction, community engagement, I would call it. Another was programming, facilities and equipment. And we can have a long conversation about the state of facilities and equipment when I got there in 1995. I think staff morale was an issue. And there was also the relationship with the 5 colleges, because as many people know, WFCR stands for 5 College Radio, was founded by the colleges, and has had a very strong relationship since the beginning. In 1961, WFCR just turned 60. WGBY is about to turn 50, so a lot of big anniversaries this year too. But I think that in major accomplishments, we've seen significant growth in fundraising, especially in major giving and underwriting. I think, you were the only person responsible for underwriting business support when I got there, and that's grown tremendously. So both areas have grown. We had something at the time called the 5 College Radio Committee, and we expanded that to include community members in addition to 5 college members, and that became the WFCR Advisory Committee or Advisory Board. And then we had a dormant friends group, which we revitalized. And over the years, those 2 organizations, groups joined together. We expanded our board. We went from a friends group to WFCR Foundation, then to NEPR Foundation, and now to NEPM. So we've had a lot of wonderful community people working on our board. We've expanded the board, and we have a great board today. Programming, we live in an area where people wanted both news and music and arts and culture, and it was all on one radio station, WFCR, one frequency. And I think one of the biggest accomplishments of the last 25 years was creating two networks, the NEPR, now NEPM News Network, and then we have news and music on 88.5 WFCR. But that one frequency grew to now 13 frequencies and actually three programming streams because we have an HD2 channel that's classical that's also streamed. And then for those of you who have ever been to Hampshire House on the UMass campus, what can I say about the facilities? We could have a fun conversation about that, Mark, but it was in pretty bad shape. We had three people to an office. We had leaky roof. We had equipment going back to 1965 that was still in use. And we've addressed all of that. The Five College Studios is still in Hampshire House. It's been rehabilitated and renovated. We have nice facilities there. We have beautiful facilities in Springfield, where radio moved in 2014. And we are now working on consolidating and renovating Hampden Street, which is where TV has been for many decades. And we've upgraded all the equipment. So that was a very important goal. I think over the years, I hope we've improved staff morale. I'm proud to say that in my 25 years, for various budget issues, I've only had to lay off maybe 5 people, and some of those positions came back. And I think we have a very strong relationship, not only with the 5 colleges, but with all the colleges in our region. And that's been enhanced recently by a new program we're doing. It's starting on radio and social media and digital called And Another Thing, 6 p.m. Weekdays. That will expand to television in the fall. And it's already opened up a lot of content opportunities for the colleges in new ways to participate. We expanded our internship program. There was no paid internship program when I got here. I'm also very proud of Media Lab, which is a training program for high school students and some younger students as well. We've had a successful travel program up until the pandemic. A lot of things that we're very proud of, and I'm proud to say I got to work on and oversee, but again, with a wonderful group of people who've done their part in a wonderful community, a wonderful group of volunteers and donors. And it's been a good run.
And your run started in public radio a long time before you actually came to WFCR. Didn't you get your start in Boston way ahead of that?
Well, even before that, I worked for a little while in commercial radio at ABC Radio Network, right across from Lincoln Center. I had a very entry-level job. It was called a desk assistant. But then after I left there, I started as a volunteer at WNYC, the public radio station in New York. And if you want to talk about facilities, you should have seen that place in 1979, 80. 83, I got married. We moved to Boston. And in 85, I started working at WGBH Radio. And I was there for 11 years. So most of my time has been spent in public radio. And recently, last 2.5 years, of course, with the merger, television. I have some television experience going back to when I was working in New York, working for a news feed, a news network. But I've dabbled in a lot of different things over the almost 40 years.
So, what got you interested in radio and broadcasting in the first place?
Well, I have a background in music. I started playing trombone when I was in 4th grade. I went to college to become a performance major. I wound up becoming a music major. I got a BFA and an MFA from University of Buffalo in music education. I had done as I mentioned, some journalism at WNYC and at this news network in New York. So what got me into it was a combination of different interests and where I felt my skills and aptitude would best be used. I had been in leadership positions starting in high school and through college, and I was interested in journalism. I did a little reporting in high school and then after college professionally, and I was always involved in music and aspired at one point to be an educator. So I really am lucky because the work that I've been able to do all these years combines all of those things and all of my interests. I actually wanted to be a documentary filmmaker. Um, that looked to be a bit challenging, so I just wound up, you know, getting into radio, and I've loved it. I love all media, radio, television. It's just been a passion of mine. I guess you would say when I was a kid, I was starstruck.
Yeah, I think we all were, and there's something very attractive about media in its variety of ways to fulfill that
Yeah.
and all that. And with the pandemic, first of all, how did a network like New England Public Media fare during the pandemic? Because rush hour no longer existed. People were working from home. A lot of people were out of work, and utilized radio and TV. Did you find your audience shifting and changing during the pandemic? And how were you guys able to stay afloat?
Well, I think that I would say about the audience for TV and radio and online has been stable, but we did see a spike in online listening because, of course, for radio, people were not commuting, they were not in their cars, they were at home. Um, we did see an increase for our educational programming on TV because we stepped up when schools shut down and provided more educational programming on one of the channels we provide, and we provided more educational programming and access to educational materials online. Financially, the donor contributions have been fantastic. People have really stepped up. They've told us they appreciate what we do now more than they ever have in the past, and realize the value of having this regional public media service that provides news, critical news during the pandemic and during the racial unrest and tensions we've had in the country and in our region over the last year and a half. People turned to us for all those things and more, and they also found comfort in our music programming, classical and jazz, and our cultural programming on television. And we did some of our own virtual events, but donor contributions remain strong. Business contributions, I think, as can be expected, declined. Uh, Many businesses were closed. Almost every arts organization was closed. So many of our traditional business partners were not able to purchase on air support. And we made up for it in part because we were eligible for a forgivable PPP loan. And Congress did step up a couple of times and funded some more money to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which got distributed throughout public media systems. So all those things combined, kept us going and put us in a reasonably good financial position right now.
So definitely compared to other cultural organizations, you guys actually were thriving when others were totally shut down.
Yeah, and that's a worry. It's a concern of us in the arts community. We hope that all of these arts organizations will come back. I fear that not all of them will, but we hope that they will come back. We've been told over the years that NEPM and the stations in NEPM have been lifelines for the artistic community and the cultural community. We've probably intersected at some point with just about every major cultural arts organization up and down the valley, including Greater Hartford. So I think that we're hopeful they're all going to come back and we can help them in some way.
Well, I would assume that the pandemic, I mean, most of the arts organizations, there are a couple that are in really precarious situations, but most of them are beginning to resurface and all of that. And I think that our whole opportunity for culture and media changed when people like the Metropolitan Opera would stream free opera performances night after night, and theater companies around the globe were putting material out there to be streamed. I noticed that public television and public radio were offering more events out there. So the lack of live performance opportunities were sort of made up by what media was doing to help in that situation. When you look at the arts organizations around the valley and the cultural groups in which New England Public Media is considered to be a part of, do you think that it's going to be an all clear in the next 6 months for groups, or do you think there's going to be still a lot of challenges?
Well, I think there'll still be some challenges for some groups. I think most of the organizations, which are, in our region fairly small, will come back, and we're seeing things opening up outside during the summer. It certainly looks like the Berkshires are going to open up. The BSO is going to have fewer performances, but they're going to be performing. Other arts organizations, Jacob's Pillow, Berkshire Theater, many in the Berkshires will be opening up. They had a horrible year last year. And I think that we're going to see some others in our region, theater and musical groups. But I think that for some, it might take a little bit longer to get there. And, it remains a concern, but it looks like things are opening. Mark, Broadway is supposed to open in September and October. And I think there's a movement back to, getting things open. And people I talk to, including myself, and you and I have talked about this, you basically can't wait to get back into a theater.
Yeah, what
No.
did you miss the most during the pandemic? I mean, you're a regular theater goer, not only around here, but in New York, and you go to a lot of music events and things like that. What did you miss the most, performance-wise, during the pandemic?
Well, I think the thing I missed the most was going to New York more often to get bagels. But in terms of, I'm a big theater goer, my wife and I, and you and I, you said at the beginning of the show, Broadway, the Bushnell, I missed all of that. We spend a lot of time in the Berkshires in the summer. That was gone. We did participate and watch things online, virtual events, and some of them were very good. And I applaud the efforts that the arts organizations and musicians and theater people put into getting things online and getting to people. We did our own Valley Voices that way several times. But there's just something missing about not being able to go into a theater and be there with other people and experience a live performance and really feel the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. So all those things were very, very much missed. And it made me realize how often I actually go out and how busy we are, because all of a sudden I was home most of the time.
Yeah, I really missed going to live theater and particularly to Broadway. A couple of weeks before everything shut down, I mean, I had had a prior year of not being able to do much of anything, and one of my goals was to go see a Broadway show. And one of our colleagues from NEPM and I are regular Broadway theater people, and we went to New York to see Mac and Mabel. And I was so excited to be back in a Broadway theater and everything. And the next week, everything shut down. But I've missed just sitting in and watching a show and feeling that the actors versus the audience and that energy that goes back and forth that you just don't get when you're sitting on the living room sofa streaming something and eating while you're watching a musical. That I like to
Right.
be among people. Plus, you mentioned bagels. I mean, I missed going to New York and then getting back on the train with bagels and stuff from Zabar's and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I had to order my Zabars online and have it delivered. That's That's not cheap, you know.
I know. We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters that make On the Mark and other community programs possible here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and we'll be back after this break to chat more with Martin Miller from New England Public Media, so don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning. If you've missed a part of today's program, or you want to hear other versions of On the Mark, or you want to listen to this one or watch it again, all of our programs are stored on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. We're chatting with Martin Miller, the CEO of New England Public Media, who's about to step down after 26 years of building what was WFCR into this media, radio, and TV conglomerate, so to speak, here in Western New England that includes what used to be WGBY Public Television and what used to be WFCR and later New England Public Radio. Martin, over the 26 years you've been involved, who are some of the most colorful or memorable people that you've met in NPR that you've had experiences with while you've been here at in Western New England?
Well, there have been some wonderful people who've come through from NPR, and I will try to remember all of them. Bob Edwards, I think we had Cokie Roberts here, certainly Ann Garrels. Ann Garrels became a friend and a co-chair, honorary chair of one of our capital campaigns.
We should stop
Corey
and say
Flintoff.
that Ann Garrels, who reported from Iraq, I believe it was, actually, she grew up in Longmeadow. She was a local.
That's right. She grew up in Longmeadow, Springfield, and she lives now in Connecticut and can still hear the station. So she's a fan and supporter, and it's been many years overseas as an international correspondent in Moscow and then covering two wars in the Middle East. Fabia Quest Arcton. Recently, we've had people from public television also. I don't want to leave public television out of this because WGBY has been around for 50 years and, is now part of New England Public Media. But most of my interactions have been with people from public radio because that's where I spend most of my time. Ira Glass. Oh, Garrison Keillor. How can I forget Garrison Keillor? Been here probably 3 or 4 times. Paula Poundstone. We've been at events with Wait, Don't Tell Me, and it's Peter Sagal, Carl Castle. Yeah, it's been fun. Our own Audie Cornish. I say our own Audie Cornish because she was an intern. She went to UMass. She was an intern under Bob Paquette, and now she's one of the co-hosts of All Things Considered. So, yeah, a lot of fun, interesting people, and they've all been really wonderful. to work with and to have as guests. Who am I missing? Scott Simon, Tamara Keefe, David Brancaccio.
Yeah, there have been
I
so
could
many.
go on.
Now, I guess this is a milestone year for NPR because a book came out recently about the four founding mothers of NPR.
Right. Oh, I forgot Susan Stamberg.
Susan Stamberg. But didn't if my memory serves, all four of the founding mothers, which was Linda Wertheimer, Susan Stamberg, Cokie Roberts, and Nina Totenberg, all four of them have been up here at one point or another over the time that you've been here.
They've all been here. And in fact, for WFCR's 10th anniversary, 10 years ago, the 50th, I was standing in line behind Susan Stamberg at a conference the year before. And I went up to her and I said, Ms. Stamberg, introduced myself. I said, our radio station's going to have our 50th anniversary next year. We're having a big celebration at our arts and entertainment. I can't remember the name of it, Mark. Awards ceremony. And would you come and host it? And she was there, and it was really great because we had one of the founding mothers of NPR at the 50th anniversary of WFCR, and it was a wonderful evening. And she's really, really a very down to earth, wonderful person. We had an interview with the author of that book, who described her that way, and really all four of them that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the people that are involved in NPR, in front of the mic and behind the scenes. It's just kind of a unique family of people all around, and so many interesting connections. When you and I had the opportunity to bring Bob Edwards, who had been the famous anchor and host and reporter of Morning Edition, we had the opportunity to bring him to Springfield to do a reading of a book he had written, and Western New England University and Brenda Garton helped us do that event. And I had never met him, and then as we're standing there talking, we realized that we were both in undergraduate school together. And
really,
he only remembered me because he said that I sat on the steps of a certain building where the theater department was located with a bunch of guys that we used to go out there and smoke and drink our coffees. And he was the communications program was at just like down the block, a half a block. And he reminded me of the fact that when we were in school, a small airplane had crashed or hit the tower of what was WAMU, which is now the flagship station for NPR in Washington. And we were both sitting out there on the steps smoking the day that happened. You talk about a small little world of things that you would never think about. And I just had the best time toting him around town, and also bringing David Sedaris and some of the other authors and people here. And if it hadn't been for New England Public Media, these people that, like David Sedaris or Scott Simon or Ira Glass would not be up here making personal appearances. They filled the stages at the Fine Arts Center or Amherst College or the Calvin and all of this stuff. So a lot of the events kind of brought the NPR family to the local listeners on a very accessible level.
Yeah, Mount Holyoke College. My first event, I think, was with Bob Edwards at Mount Holyoke College, and we were honoring our former general manager, Joan Rubel, at that time. And then, as you mentioned, Bob Edwards wrote a book about Edward R. Murrow, and that was the event at Western New England University. And I'm forgetting Terry Gross. Yeah. She was here too. I think the only major NPR celebrities we could not get because they would not travel were the Car Talk guys.
Yeah, but I remember at one point where the Car Talk guys were celebrating an anniversary.
That's Boston. Right. We took a busload of people to Boston. We took a couple of buses
to Boston. We sat there, and it was some stage that was set up on the harbor. It was the coldest night of August ever. And they had all the famous brothers. They had the Smothers Brothers and Dr. Joyce Brothers. And
right.
Those guys were funny.
That was not the coldest August I've ever experienced. One of those was in Tanglewood, and one was in northern Vermont. But yes, I do remember that event. It was a lot of fun. A huge turnout in Boston. They were incredibly popular show. Some people did not believe that they belonged on public radio, but in many ways they were the perfect fit for public radio.
Yeah, and I guess some stations, I'm not sure that New England Public Radio does, but some stations still carry their reruns of the programs. And even though the years and the makes of the cars are now like antiques, their car advice is probably the most sensible and sane around.
Well, I think they gave more personal relationship advice than car advice. I think they took it out of distribution, although it may be still available online. But they had a fantastic run. Of course, one of the brothers passed away, but there have just been some wonderful programs that have come out of PBS, WGBH, WNET, KQED, the big national producers for public television, independent producers, wonderful programs that have come from. I mean, if you really sit back and think about it, and I would guess people who are watching us probably watch public broadcasting, but if you haven't ever watched or listened to public broadcasting, I wish you would, because you're really missing out a lot of fantastic stuff. And our business model allows you to consume it for free. I shouldn't say that because we really need your contributions, but that's the model. It's worked all these years. I hope it continues to work.
Yeah, I wonder if it will down the road, because every newspaper website now, that if you want to read good content, you have to pay to play. And I guess public broadcasting and community broadcasting like us all depends on contributions. So you pay what you can, but it's a different business model than the rest of the media world.
Well, it depends on contributions and relationships and collaboration. And that's why we have New England Public Media. To be as successful as we possibly can, we needed to come together. We compete nationally and internationally, not locally, with companies that have billions of dollars. You know that Amazon just purchased MGM Studios for $8 billion. I mean, these are the kinds of mega corporations that we're competing with for eyes and ears, and we are local. That's what makes us different. We're serving the community and engaging with the community on a local level, and it's just so much more important today than it ever has been. And I can go into all that for you if you want. I also want to correct something I messed up before, because this was one of the things I was proud of, which is our Arts and Humanities Award, which our board started. It's been in hiatus, but and I don't know if we'll get back to it, but that was another wonderful way we engage with the community in the arts and humanities, and awarded some very wonderful people and acknowledged their gifts to our region.
Does in terms of nationally, how does New England Public Media, the radio TV connection, is this something unique to us, or is this the public radio and TV something similar that you'd see in other communities around the country?
Well, you definitely see it in other communities around the country, and I think especially if you're looking at the top 50 markets in the country, we happen to be smaller than that, in the 100s, but I think we're seeing more and more that this is happening in public media around the country. But I think in New England right now, except for a couple of states, we have combined radio and TV operations in every New England state. So it's becoming more and more the pattern. We think our model is somewhat unique and might be followed in other regions and other places around the country, because this is a joint affiliation between a university licensee and a community licensee. There are differences there, and there are differences, with university and college licensed stations. There are different types of licenses. They're all public, but I think what we've seen is the combinations of media, public media together have been the ones that have been the most successful. And, we're living in a time where everything is on multiple platforms. And if you're just a radio station, how are you going to get your content out in video and social media? And if you're just a TV station, how are you going to get it out in audio and podcasts? So it makes sense to take these two wonderful assets, bring them together, and really enhance the amount of programming we can do, the type of fundraising we can do, the type of extension across the Commonwealth because of our relationship with WGBH and creating a connected Commonwealth. This all serves the public in a much better way than if we were to continue doing it alone.
Exactly. People during various administrations in the government, Democrat and Republicans, there's always this threat to cut funding to public broadcasting, particularly during the Trump administration. And how much money does New England Public Media actually get directly from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting?
So our combined contribution from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting stands at less than $1 million. That's out of a $12 million budget. So we're talking less than 10% of our budget comes from federal support. If I were to break that down in terms of an individual person's tax dollar, it's pennies and maybe fractions of a penny compared to the federal budget overall, because the total appropriation for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is the public entity that was set up to accept federal funds and distribute it to qualified public broadcasters, is only around $500 or $550 million. Okay.
Okay.
How big is the next budget? 6 trillion or something. It's tiny. It's a tiny percentage. So a very tiny percentage, really fractions of pennies on the dollar, are coming from individual taxpayers to our public media station, and that's true across the country. So we are heavily dependent, and the majority of support comes from the community in the form of individual contributions and business contributions primarily. We have our 5 college institutions that help out. We have granting organizations, local and national, that we get some money from. But it's really the community as a whole in all aspects that support public media.
I think people tend to understand in the world of television that if you're like NBC affiliate or a CBS or an ABC or PBS, that you're getting your programming from another, from a national entity. In the case of NPR, what does a station have to do to qualify to be an NPR member station? Because not only does that station get programming from NPR, but they produce their own. So what makes New England Public Radio, or WFCR, an NPR affiliate? Do you have to pay to play, or are you selected to be a part of it because of the quality of the programming and the quality of the institution?
Well, there are certain requirements for becoming an NPR member, but essentially, if you are an NPR member, you are paying for the programming that you receive. That's the same for PBS. So we pay dues to be members, and we pay money to the program providers for the programming. That's different than commercial broadcasting, because commercial broadcasters become an affiliate of a network, take all of their programming for free, and sell commercials. And a certain number of commercial spots are reserved for national, and some are reserved for local. But all the programming, with the understanding that there are going to be commercial breaks, and some of that commercial money is going in different places, that commercial advertising money is going different places, that program is provided to that affiliate for free. We become members. We have certain qualifications for receiving federal support, and that only covers a fraction of what we're paying for these programs, I should mention. But we get the programming, and then we have to, and it's based on the size of the station, it's based on population, it's based on listenership, all determines how much we pay for these programs. And in the case of NPR, actually, the more successful we are reaching listeners, the more money we're charged. So, having a bigger audience is great, but it also means it costs us more money.
Okay, we got to take another break to acknowledge underwriters here. And underwriting makes all kinds of programming possible here on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. And Martin and I can both agree that the business community and the arts organizations, both for-profit and nonprofit, that support radio and television through underwriting are doing a major service for all of us. So we're going to take a break to acknowledge them. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. Our guest is Martin Miller from New England Public Media, and we'll be right back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays, 8 to 10.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're broadcasting on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. If you've missed a portion of today's program, or you want to hear some of the previous ones, or you want to hear this one again, and I think you'll want to, you'll find it stashed away and archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. Martin Miller from New England Public Media is our guest. He's about to retire after being here for 26 years, building what was WFCR and what was Channel 57 into New England Public Media, which provides public radio and television to a lot of Western New England, certainly all of Western Massachusetts, Southern Vermont, New Hampshire, Northern Connecticut, and is a major cultural institution that now has its headquarters in downtown Springfield. I guess you guys turned Springfield into a media center, because between the offices on Main Street and the offices on Hampden Street, that's a lot of media downtown.
Yeah, I guess it is. And as I mentioned earlier, we're actually about to renovate and build out 44 Hampden Street, which was the home of WGBY and where the television studios are, and consolidate into that one building. I think that in a way is an outcome of a merger, but it's also the outcome of a pandemic where we're going to have some hybrid model of work going forward. And consolidation means we can save some money and be more efficient and actually create a community space in Hampden Street. And this will be a wonderful addition for Springfield and the region to have a community engagement space where we can have artists, musicians, poets, writers, anything you can think of, for people who travel around the country or are familiar with the radio stations, WBUR and WGBH in Boston. WBUR has a space like this. WGBH has a space in the Boston Public Library. WNYC has something called the Green Space that they use for these kind of events, and it's very interactive. It really will engage the community in a new way, and I think it'll be a huge boost to Springfield to have a venue like this. We'll actually have two sections, one where we can seat about 80 to 90 people and another 100 to 120 people. and it's really going to be a great addition for NEPM and for the community as a whole. And I hope that people from the entire region will come. We're going to be inviting people from around the entire region, and of course, we also cover a very large section of Connecticut, mostly Greater Hartford, into Greater Hartford. So, yeah, we're excited about that.
Yeah, in a small space like that in Springfield will be terrific because Symphony Hall has got its restrictions and it's rather huge, and there aren't really a lot of theater spaces left downtown anymore.
Yeah, it's very true. And to be able to bring in our Valley Voices into that space, our other programs, mini concerts like the mini desk concerts you hear on NPR, all those kinds of things, and we really want it to come from all of the communities that we cover, and have really a wonderful mix and wonderful rich variety of cultural events happening in that space.
When you talked earlier about programming, you said that you had created a new program which runs on weeknights that you hoped would become both radio and television. But the combination of what was WFCR and what was WGBY have also created some major programs initiated on the local level. For example, Jazz a la Mode or As Schools Match Wits. So some of the programming is very unique here. What is this new program that just recently launched?
Well, for many, many years, I've wanted radio to have a local daily program. There was one before I got here, and it went away. I think it's very important for local content and to be able to connect with the community. And because of the merger and an infusion of funds and other funds we're raising, we started a program that is called And Another Thing. It airs at 6 p.m. It's on 88.5 right now. It's on social media. It's online. And this fall, it'll be on Channel 57 live at 6 o'clock. It's going to be the first of its kind in the country because it's going to be a live, multi-platform program. And it's designed to look at the major news of the day, the day's events, and examine them from a local, regional perspective. Yesterday, we actually did a program on the 10th anniversary of the tornado that went through Springfield. It's actually a very good program. If people missed it, I hope you go back and listen online. Some very dramatic audio of that day is in that program. And the program that was on 5 days a week on 57 Connecting Point is now a very robust half-hour arts and cultural programming. And it's going to be a multicultural arts and cultural program. So that's on Fridays, half an hour at 6 o'clock. As you mentioned, As School Match Wits just celebrated 60 years on television, a remarkable feat. And over the years on radio, we've had our programs that have been there since I, came on board. Jazz a la Mode, Safari, which is now Jazz Safari, Tertulia, our classical music programs during the day and on the weekends. So, we're really proud of the local programming we do. And I would mention that beside the fact that And Another Thing is unique in the country, or will be unique in the country as a live multi-platform program, it's very unusual to have a local program like Connecting Point. And in fact, we're probably one of maybe a dozen public television stations in the country that produces a local program like that. So there's a lot to be proud of here in Western Massachusetts of what we're producing from NEPM. And I mentioned our campaign, New Voices, which is in its quiet phase. It's a major campaign for sustainability, but more importantly, for the growth of programming. And I could talk more about that if you like, but it's all about what we can do locally.
One question that I had during the pandemic, everybody at most media places worked from home. Were you able to get a newscast going with your reporters reporting from their houses? Did you have to buy equipment to sustain like all these mini studios around the region, or how did you make that happen?
Well, yes, very quickly, I would say. And I was really proud of the staff who turned this around so quickly. We really didn't miss a beat when we went into lockdown. We did have to buy more equipment so that, uh, Carrie Healy can broadcast from a remote site every day to host Morning Edition. Others were doing that as well. We did our fundraising remotely, both for TV and radio. We did have to buy a lot of equipment to do editing at home, to have our reporters do their reporting from home. We had to buy additional equipment in the field so that uh, reporters could be 6 feet from the person they were interviewing. At one point, one of our reporters, I think, had taken a hockey stick and taped his microphone to the end of a hockey stick so they could have a boom mic. We eventually got him a regular boom so he could use that. But so there were some creative ways and a good amount of expense that went into being able to work remotely. And, we expect that there's going to continue to be some of that, and there'll be some sort of hybrid situation. But I think that, the staff members I speak to really feel that they can be more productive, and they just want to be together again, at least some of the time, face to face, interacting, working together. And I think in a creative organization, that's really, really critical.
Yeah, I don't know about you personally, but I found working from home was great. I mean, you could get a snack whenever you wanted. Laundry could be going while you were doing something else. But I really miss the one-on-one and working here with radio and TV and having to do almost no in studio things, everything being Zoom, really made it difficult. Whether it was a meeting or staging an interview, I mean, I'm used to it now, but it just changed the parameters of everything because we are people, so to speak, in
Yeah.
media.
Well, yeah, I completely, totally agree with you. And I think that in some ways it's worked in our favor because, we never wanted to do things remotely because either the video or the audio quality wasn't good enough. And now we understand the audience is willing to accept that, although we still want the highest standard possible. But in one way, it's opened us up to the possibility of having people who can't get to the studio, available to us either on Zoom or on a good landline or voice over IP line, whatever it is. And the audience has accepted that. So I expect that there's going to be a lot of that's going to continue, especially in the interview world. And that's okay because, again, it opens up the possibilities for guests that we never might have had in the past because we're used to doing things a certain way. But I completely agree with you in terms of, being a creative organization and the need to come together, to see people in person, to work together, to have interactions. And that's what people are set up to do. And I will tell you, from working at home, 97% of the last 14 months, being on Zoom for 5 or 6 hours a day. I mean, it's a wonderful device that we are able to carry on our business with, but it's very tiring.
It's exhausting. I mean, I am so glad that things are opening up and we can get outside and out and about and stuff. One last question: with with everything going online, because people, they can listen to a WFCR program or watch a WGBY program. They don't have to be in Western Massachusetts anymore with all the networks and the platforms and everything. Are you developing an audience that you're aware of outside of Western New England?
Well, I can't say that we have a great deal of audience outside of Western New England, and we can track where people are going online. But we have received contributions from people living overseas including Japan, who listen to our jazz programming. I think one of the things, I don't know how much time we have left, but one of the things that's a key to the future and a major part of our New Voices campaign is how do we become a digital first organization? What does that mean? Well, we know that younger people, people who are my son and daughter's ages, are not listening or watching the way we did growing up and the way our generation and older generations still do. We're moving to an age where at some point we may not have traditional over-the-air broadcast signals anymore. Everything may just be coming into our homes and our cars and our workplaces digitally. And as populations age out and pass on, the younger people who are only used to using digital technology will be the predominant viewers and listeners of the future. And we have to be there in digital for them. And a big part of our campaign is to reach younger people and to reach a much more diverse population than we serve today through this campaign, through this fundraising, through the programming, and put more and more of it in the digital realm and get people to learn and understand how they can access everything we do digitally. And now we know in Massachusetts there are still digital dead zones where we're still trying to finish complete the final mile, so to speak. But, we hope there's a day where everybody has complete access to Wi-Fi and there aren't any problems like that. And then everything we do is available digitally to everyone.
That's going to be great. And one of the things, after you retire and you get that little capital campaign you're working on out of the way, you'll have to come down here and you and I will have to spin some show tune discs, which will go out digital. We'll hang out and play, and then you can give some secrets away on where the best bagels are in New York when you go to see a Broadway show.
I can't wait, Mark. I look forward to it. We still have $7.5 million to go, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Martin Miller, thanks for joining us this morning. We've been
Thank
chatting
you.
with Martin Miller from New England Public Media, about to retire, but I don't think he actually will retire. He'll move into something else. And that wraps up another program on The Mark. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, your host. We'll catch you next Wednesday with another edition of On The Mark. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to catch some of the other ones, they're all archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. We'll see you next week.
Who's the pretty lady, Scotty?
Her name's Lavender.
Where have you been hiding her?
Oh, well, I've got to keep some secrets here and there now, don't I?
And a fine secret you were, little lady. My name's Mitchell Owens.
My name's Leroy Trout.
We're mighty pleased to see the secrets out and about.
Look at them over there, acting like they never seen a girl before.
Like they haven't eaten for a week, and she's a big old juicy steak.
Certainly not rare, for heaven's sake. Don't you think she's common? Don't you think she's cheap?
She's probably kissed 1,000 boys and wants to add ours to the heap.
Well, she better keep her hands to herself.
Her color isn't real. I'm sure she's been using that blondine stuff. Well, look at Mitchell clapping like a seal.
And look at Mr. Trout leave.
More than I can take.
Well, I've surely seen enough.
When you get bored with Scotty, let me show you how to really cut a rug.
Hey, I saw her first. I want my chance.
Now, boys, this isn't a tug of war. Let's dance.
Let's dance.
Come on, let's dance.
Boys are so silly sometimes.
Ladies like you make us silly. Got a girl on my arm. Never knew a creature could be so charming. But for now, take it slow. We've got time.
Here's a boy I just met. When I go, I know I will not forget him. But for now, here I am. We've got time. Listen, can't you hear my heartbeat? To the rhythm of the dancing feet. Life is sweet, and you know I never felt so clever, never so alive or so complete. With the one I adore in this world, nobody could ask for more than what we've got. Such a lot, we've got time.
Soon I'll get my big chance. When he takes a breather, I'll grab a dance and make a date. It's not late, I've got time.
the boys like it. Old Tomcat, he'll have his kicks, but I've got tricks, I've got time. Hey there, notice how the air sways in rhythm of piano.